Hello, this is Shaheen from idmarketingtools.com. The number one question that I get from business owners is, why is the competition beating me? What exactly are they doing in their digital marketing strategy that's allowing them to supersede me? So what I want to show you today is, real quickly, I sort of want to show you the strategy that I use to figure out what a site is doing to make its money, and then I'll show you basically just how to do that real quickly in 5 minutes. After that, I'll sort of unpack it and get exactly into what I'm doing and what I'm looking at in each tool. There's obviously much more to it, but this video will give you a good slice of how to spy on the competition. It'll show you how to understand their digital marketing strategy, because at the end of the day, we want to learn how they make money. We want to steal their customers, what should be our rightful customers, their keywords, their backlinks, and their successful content. In the last 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, a lot of digital sites sort of crushing it in 2012 and have just felt a pretty gradual decline. And a lot of that is, people feel that a lot of that is driven by sites like Amazon or eBay that are coming into the market and sort of pushing around the smaller guys. But we're not powerless in this situation. In almost every instance, we can find a way to work around it, and we can make sure that we're still crushing these big sites and we're still being relevant to our consumers and the people that have been buying our stuff for years. So the goal of this video is just to break down what the competition's doing in less than 5 minutes. I have a repeatable process that I've built up over working with hundreds of clients, so I can bring you solid correlations that I consistently see between the information that we get on the outside and the information that an e-commerce store actually has on the inside once you're able to dig into analytics data. And this has worked for hundreds of clients. I've done it on thousands of pitches for my day job at Iterate Marketing, and I just know consistently what to look for, and so we can sort of get on the trail, and that basically will allow you to get after the most frequent question that I hear from people, which is, why is the competition dominating the market, and thus, what can I do about it? So I'll show you exactly how to figure out that very same question, right? How do they make their money? And then you can decide how to go on the offensive and how you want to respond. So on a basic level, there's probably 4 tools that most business owners can use. I would suggest SimilarWeb, BuzzSumo, SEMrush, and Ahrefs. SEMrush and Ahrefs are paid, but they're incredible tools, and you'll see why in a moment here. But SimilarWeb and BuzzSumo will just give us a little sort of taste of what the competition's doing, and then we can really dig in there. So I'll obviously use more tools, but consistently these are the sort of go-tos when I'm first just diving into a market. And obviously it's not like I know anything about HVAC or I know anything about medical supply companies, but all of these tools basically allow me to break down what's happening and then help my clients win consistently, right? So we're basically just trying to figure out where and how companies make their money, because that'll then tell us where to focus. So large companies like Amazon, or let's say Grainger even, right, can be sloppy or inefficient with their targeting, but we as the small business owner that really need to make payroll or just make a business work, we can't be sloppy. We can't pass the buck. So I work with small business owners all the time, and nothing feels better than them being able to tell me that, we're hiring more people, the business is growing because of all the good work we're doing. So these are the correlations that I generally see, and this is the information that I want to bring to you. For anyone that has any amount of revenue over, $500 from organic traffic and are running anywhere over $1,000 in ads, it's definitely worth investing in some of these tools, because you're going to get so many insights into where that money's coming from. Generally speaking, for 70 to 80% of the sites that I see on a consistent basis, their revenue sources can roughly break down with this relation. Outside of direct traffic or repeat business or referrals or their email newsletter, you'll generally see most of the revenue coming from organic traffic, followed by retailers, paid traffic, social ads, PR, and traditional marketing, in that sort of descending order. This is generally how most businesses tend to make their money when it comes to the digital sphere. The thing to remember generally is 81% of shoppers research online before they buy, right? So as of 2016, 51% do start on Amazon, which correlates pretty strongly with what I see from people in my age group, on the younger end of things. I know many people that haven't bought anywhere but Amazon online, right? That's how dominant they are on the market. 28% begin on Google. So Google's competitor for product search isn't actually Yahoo or Bing, right? It's actually Amazon. And obviously, people are also getting a taste of brands through Instagram or Snapchat or through their friends on Facebook, right? So there's many different entry points to the market in 2016. But that said, there's still a pretty consistent correlation between successful brands and businesses and their organic traffic, and whether or not they sell on retailers, and whether or not they're running good paid traffic, paid ad campaigns, right? So these sort of correlations tend to run pretty strong in most of the businesses that I see. Obviously, you can get black swans out there that might sort of change your opinion, but generally, this is what we'll be chasing down, and this sort of process will at least give us a good slice and taste of what's going on in the market. So what we're going to do is just jump into a sample. I promise you this process will work for almost any business in any market. So we'll chase down the money, right, in less than 5 minutes. People make the mistake of thinking that their competition is the guy down the block or whatever it may be. But obviously, once you're in the digital sphere, it can be anyone, anywhere. So what I really want to do is help people pursue what their actual market and competition is. So I'm gonna try to throw out a random product, um, you know, something that I don't know much about. Um, it's raining up in Portland, so let's go with duck boots. So I guess LL Bean, right? I think is the famous brand for this. Sperry makes duck boots. Kabbalah does. Um, we are gonna pretend that we are one of these companies, right? So LL Bean is the original duck boot. Obviously, it's going to be in retailers. So let's pretend that we as a business are, let's find one of these smaller guys. GH Basin Co. No idea who these guys are. Don't know where they're from. Looks like they are a factory outlet. And I assume they make their own products, hopefully. So it's like a mix, but definitely in e-commerce. So let's pretend that we're these guys. We're trying to compete. We're trying to basically figure out how to destroy the competition and how to sell more duck boots. Obviously, they'll probably have multiple categories of products they are trying to ship, but I'm basically going to show you how to dig in and get a good sense of, how am I going to outrank LL Bean? How am I going to sell more duck boots than Sperry? Brands that are larger and have been in the market for longer. That's really what we're trying to figure out. Maybe even a smaller brand, if we can find one, would be a good buy. Let's see if Magellan Outdoors sells direct. Doesn't look like it. All right. GH Basin Co. it is. All right, so Alexa, set a timer for 5 minutes, please.
Sorry, your Echo Dot lost its connection.
Alexa, set a timer for 5 minutes. All right. Well, that's what happens when you do it live. All right, so I'm gonna be done by 9:27. All right, so we're gonna try to sell more duck boots. The first thing that I like to do is roll over to SimilarWeb, as I first pointed out, right? BuzzSumo, SEMrush, and Ahrefs. So who we're trying to really take out here is LL Bean, because they sort of own the market. It's their product. They invented the design. Doesn't mean that we can't outrank them. Doesn't mean that we can't sell more of them. So I'm cheating here a little bit, but we're gonna do this in 5 minutes, so I want to just get into it. So these are the main tools that I use in my day to day. These kind of just allow me to really quickly break down what's going on with with the competition and basically what's happening in the market. So I'll get into exactly what each one of these does in a moment, but this will at least give you a good sense of how I work when I'm trying to break this all down. Another thing I'll do too is just jump over here to Screaming Frog, which again is probably more on the hardcore SEO side, but always good to know. And we'll get into that later after this quote unquote 5 minute period, right? So Similar Web. This tool is probably a great place to start for almost any business. Obviously, someone like LL Bean is going to be large enough where they'll have data points. Sometimes I feel like calling BS on them just because it doesn't seem right that they would have average visitor duration, all that kind of info. But it's still good to know. And it's still absolutely worth looking at. So basically, the first thing I do is I check out the brand, right? I'm wondering to myself, where do they sell? In this case, they sell in the U.S. I'm trying to wonder mainly this is the first thing that I'm look at, right? Because this is what I'm trying to figure out is what is their main source of revenue, right? So LL Bean generally seems, according to SimilarWeb, to have a large chunk of direct traffic. They have some display advertising going on. They get a lot of referrals. They get a lot of search. So that tells us that LL Bean is probably making the majority of its revenue from organic traffic. Obviously, we can see them up here doing shopping advertising. So they have a diversified base. SimilarWeb isn't going to catch everything, but it is going to tell us, let's say we see 70% search, that's where most of the business is coming from. Or that if we see a large chunk of display, that's where most of the business is coming from. But SimilarWeb will just sort of get us right on the right trail out from the start. The other thing to observe when you're sort of diving into a brand from the outset is, do they have a lot of branded search traffic? So if you see that, then you know that's how they make a lot of their money. So generally what I'll do, right, is jump into SEMrush and I'll go to their positions. They have 414,000 ranking positions, and that is quite a bit. But obviously they've been around for a while, right? So what I'll do is jump down here, I'll go to organic research, I'll go to positions, and then I'll type in duck boots and get that information. And the other thing too that you'll look at is keyword planner, because this is basically going to split the market for you, right? Most businesses, 80-90% either make a lot of their money from organic or they make a lot of their money from paid, if you're talking about non sort of direct return customers. So as we can see here, right, they spend a lot of money advertising on duck shoes, and it's probably because there are a lot of people that are trying to get a slice of that market. So we know they're pretty serious about it. On the flip side, on the organic side, right, you can see that there are all these terms that they rank number one for, right? So getting in there is going to be pretty tough. When you jump into SpyFu, right, because we do want to know more about the paid traffic they're doing, we can also get a good sense of all that same information that we got from SimilarWeb, but also look in their competition, right? So they're battling Land's End, they're battling JCPenney, they're battling REI. These are all people that probably sell their products, but are also competitors when it comes to it at the end of the day, because they're trying to sell direct. So if you're Bass & Co, are basically trying to figure out, well, is display advertising the way to go? Is sort of pay-per-click ads the way for go? Should I be concentrating on organic traffic as a way to boost my sort of revenue top line? And you'll sort of really quickly get that information here. The other thing is iEspionage is also a good alternative if you want more ad information. I like to jump into Adspresso. You're not going to get every data point for Facebook advertising. Sometimes you can see something there. In most instances, you won't be able to. So what I really do like to look at is the BuzzSumo traffic, right? Is LL Bean really active on social? Should I be active on social? On the flip side, SERPstat is kind of an all-in-one tool, kind of gets at the same information that SpyFu does and iEspionage does and SEMrush does, but just gives you a little more amplitude. You get a good sense of what their top sellers are, right? So probably LL Bean sells more women's jackets and coats than they do duck boots, but we'll know to focus on duck boots because that's kind of what we're going after. And probably the strongest tool out there in terms of just general info is Ahrefs. This will just let us know how big a brand is, right? So if LL Bean has 24,000 backlinks and we got 500 or 1,000, we got a lot of work to do. We're going to need to be really smart about how we use our resources. We're going to need to be clever about how we distribute those. So that sort of concludes the little 5-minute slice of information. The one thing that I probably missed is we're also going to want to check retailers, and we're going to want to know if who is out there selling. So we're going to dive into the Amazons, we're going to dive into the eBays, because we just need to know what else is out there, right? So this is a good example of this, right? For duck boots, we were really quickly able to sort of realize that GH Base Co would benefit from selling more of them to the market, right? But generally speaking, Rothko wasn't even on the board. So they're a pretty traditional distributor. They've been around forever. I'm 90% sure that they're actually most well known in sort of the outdoor gear, and they're actually a large military supplier, right? So that's what they do a lot of. They make rugged equipment for what looks like great prices. And they're not even playing in the organic traffic field, right? That's not even where they make their money from. They're actually just going direct on Amazon and eBay. So it's really important to understand that people are doing that, and they are making money that way. So what I'm going to do here is basically just get a little more in depth on all the things that I really quickly glossed over, and get really, really sort of intricately into like what I'm looking at. What are the things that let me know, what's working? But again, in those short minutes, we were pretty quickly able to determine, that LL Bean makes a lot of its money from organic traffic. They own a lot of duck boot terms. They're not really selling very strongly on Amazon and eBay, which is opening up an opportunity for Rothko to make money. They are doing paid ads. They're doing shopping, they're doing AdWords. We can see some of their ad copy in SpyFu. They're probably not running Facebook ads, but we can jump in there and see how strong they are in the social sphere. Because again, we're just trying to eliminate opportunities for the competition, right? So if they make a move, we want to make a move if we can, right? So if we strongly feel that we can outperform them in a certain area, it absolutely makes sense to go out and do it. Generally, I would say if you see a site with large amounts of shares, that can basically tell you that they're running ads. This right here, product shown, it's probably indicative of some ads. So Adspresso isn't necessarily going to catch it, but what you want to do is sign into your Facebook, follow them. They'll blast ads at you. Get on Instagram, follow them. They'll probably blast ads at you. Most of the competition, if you're in sort of a more industrial area, right? So let's say you do HVAC tools, right? Or you do piping for something very specific, they're generally not going to be on Facebook, right? It's mostly going to be either AdWords or organic traffic. All the same, we're just trying to suss it out and break it down because SimilarWeb will give us a good slice of where they're getting traffic from, but we really just need to be on the case, right? If we really want to figure out how we can sort of outrank and outperform the competition consistently, these are the questions that we need to be asking ourselves. So with that, I'm going to sort of just dive in and get even more in depth on what's going on. So when it comes to organic revenue in 2017, right, what we care about is what are the funnel entry points look like for a business, right? So for LL Bean, they're just absolutely crushing it because they own Duck Boot, right? So you can type in some obscure permutation, right? So you can be like men's warm duck boots. Because remember, most of search happens on the long tail, right? So something like 70% of searches have never happened before because people are just lazy. I do it all the time, right? I'm just typing in obscure stuff. Men's warm duck boots, new buck. So the people that actually just type in duck boots, generally what you'll see is large sort of retailers dominating that spot, right? So men's insulated boots is you get a sort of hit from Moosejaw, which is completely different than if I just type in duck boots, which is absolutely a term that LL Bean owns, right? So the question from an SEO perspective would then be, man, why aren't they defending that, right? Like Amazon is holding down 3 of the top 5 spots. LL Bean is still advertising on it, but they're just not playing that game very well. So that's generally the kind of question that you want to be asking yourself. So when it comes to the keywords, generally I like to go into SEMrush and I like to go into SERPstat just because it can be very, very useful. So we're back to LL Bean right here. We need to figure out exactly which keywords they're ranking for. They're just so dominant in this market. Anything from wax canvas duck boots to low cut duck boots, they're number one. And I guarantee you they're running ads on them too. And really it's because they have to, right? Because they may have been the original, but people are coming after their search traffic. They're even so big that they're getting traffic for where to buy their products. But it doesn't mean the competition isn't going to be knocking at your door. So we can pretty safely say that they're getting traffic in from lower on the funnel. And that's probably where they're getting a lot of their revenue from. You can use Ahrefs. Their tool has gotten a lot better for organic research. In the last, according to their one of their PR head, right, who's done a lot of great blog posts. They always had this ranking information. Their CEO just didn't want to release it. So they're really probably one of the best all-in-ones, and you can get a lot of excellent information from from Ahrefs now on this information. So I highly recommend taking a gander at this stuff as well. It's good to keep this in mind. You can get some of that data in SpyFu, you can get it in iEspionage, but really I like to stick to these three when it comes down to it, just because I'm trying to figure out as much keyword information as I can, right? And so, if we're the smaller guy, we need to figure out exactly where we're at and where we can be, right? So if you're ghbase.com, I'm going to plug myself into here and I'm going to see exactly what organic positions I have, right? And it may not be very many, right? It could be very poor, but if I'm only performing for low cut boots, then that tells me I probably need to stock more of them, and that may be my only competitive area where I can, where I can basically make money. It's bleak, but that's generally how it is. So you're really better off ranking for a small niche and producing consistent traffic than being like 11th for some variation, right? So this is pretty interesting, right? They're doing well for camo duck boots. They're doing well for shearling duck boots. Some of these longer tail terms, they're actually generating a pretty good chunk of change for. So if it's something like leather duck boots, I would really, if I were the owner of the business, be saying to myself, how do I improve my performance for leather duck boots? I can go down this page. Obviously, all these products are leather, but they're not dropping very much content for Google to crawl at the end of the day. One reference of leather, right? So that's sort of an instance of pretty poor targeting on the SEO side for a long tail term, right? So if you're trying to talk about winning duck boots and you're not even winning the sort of long tail variation of it, that's a lot of the sort of cognitive dissonance that business owners get when it comes to rankings and organic traffic. The other question is successful content. So SERPstat kind of got on my radar recently just because they were in the AppSumo sort of deals for cheap. And they have a really awesome feature where you can actually get in there and get ideas for your content based off of search questions, which is crazy, right? So what we'll hopefully see is something like how to take care of duck boots. Can I walk through swamps with my duck boots? Like whatever sort of absurd thing that people are asking. If they're asking a question about the product, like how to care for new buck duck boots, that's something that we really want to be answering. So these aren't the best. What are the best duck boots? This is absolutely something GH Base Co. They should be writing about that, right? What are the best women's duck boots? What are the best women's nubuck duck boots? What kind of shearling rating do I need? Can I walk through the rain with shearling? What'll happen? These are all the sorts of questions that offer themselves up to, ranking for specific keywords. And it's something that LL Bean, may not really be addressing because they are sort of winning the head term. Obviously, Amazon, even though people are selling duck boots on there, they're never going to go out there and just dominate that sort of content. So it's a good opportunity for small businesses to get out there and battle the Sorrels and the Sperry's, basically set your foot down and sort of help customers before people are able to get into these larger sites, which are ultimately our competition because we're just fighting for attention. So that's generally what I'm looking at when it comes to organic revenue and sort of I'm trying to figure out entry points in the funnel. So what specifically are they dominating? And then I'm trying to figure out what successful content is out there and sort of what's been happening on the market. So you can see a little bit of that in SERPstat in terms of, like who's written, what are the best duck boots? Who went out and just wrote that? Is it a competitor? Generally it'll be something like a comparison site, but there's no reason that as a retailer, Base & Co. can't just go out and do that themselves, right? And they should because ostensibly, right, why would I want to buy from you, right? You should know more about the product than anyone else. So that's sort of an opening that they really haven't exploited, and it's out there. On the flip side, one of the sort of awesome features about Ahrefs, which makes it a great buy, is you can even just type in a term like that into their Content Explorer and actually just sort of get a good sense of, hey, what has been written about this on the market? So obviously this is super spammy. You see a high amount of Facebook shares. They're probably just running ads on duck boots. Why? You need to buy them now. Or on the flip side, right, apparently Kanye just made some Yeezy duck boots, which is friggin' hilarious. You get a good sense of what's on the market. Something like LL Bean is making waves with its return process, switching it up. So you could even just newsjack and go out there and sort of make your own version of that. But generally, basically just newsjack it and say, we'll take them back no matter what. Generally, right, what we're looking for is actually these ones, right? The more in depth, how to wear duck boots. I'm going to assume this is a style matching, you know, how to look fly and basic in your duck boots this winter, that kind of thing, right? So those are the those are the content opportunities that we're looking for. It's something that people can pin, and it's something that people can share, but it's also just good brand exposure outside of having to, have 1,000 backlinks and having to spend thousands of dollars on advertising just to sort of box with the Amazons and eBays out there. Um, so that's basically that, right? So we're trying to locate what the popular content is, and we're trying to outperform it. So we're going to go out and write an article that's, how to match those boots. Obviously, we want to be doing some mixture of these kinds of basic content pieces that are very much about grabbing market share and customers, and we also want to do a mixture of content pieces that are interesting, right? So like we could literally something like duck boot shortage. Um, you know that's sort of a black swan content piece, right? It's not something that people are searching for, but you can sort of connect with your audience through it. um, or like, did Nike ruin the Converse brand by flipping Jack Purcell stuff into duck boots? Not really. They look like palladiums, right? So you can get into all this sort of intricacy and just connect with your customer base through this. You could be like, why Y3 should not be making duck boots or futuristic space shoes. So there's all these opportunities on the content side, and it's just a question of what's successful out there, what is going to drive revenue when it just comes down to baseline rankings. Again, which is sort of most well encapsulated by the kind of details you can find in SERPstat, and then what is going to get your customers' attention. That's really what we're looking for on the organic side. When it comes to stealing their links, the thing that to sort of realize on the SEO side is organic traffic is going to be a huge driver of revenue. If you have a lot of organic revenue on your site, something you could check in Google Analytics, you need to make sure that you're actually backing that up and generating more traffic. So if you're looking at organic data, you want to know about backlinks. Obviously, technical SEO can matter a huge amount, but it's backlinks are the engine, technical SEO is the wheels. Hard to divulge, but you can have a small engine in a moving car, but obviously you want to make the engine bigger, you want to go faster, make more revenue, so you need more links. Ahrefs is probably the number one choice on this. Matt Woodward's done a bunch of great studies on this. They just have the biggest sort of backlink repository. Google's obviously crawling the web and trying to figure out who's the most heavily referenced, a model that it sort of garnered from science papers. So I would go to Ahrefs first. I would go to Majestic second. Moz and SEMrush can kind of get the job done. I do like Moz's Open Search Explorer. It's a great tool when it just comes down to getting DA information, but it's just not going to be complete enough for any sort of serious PR, outreach, guest posting efforts. So we're really going to want to get over here into Ahrefs and sort of go to llbean.com, figure out where they're getting links, or even just take a hard gander at ourselves. What are we actually doing to get in front of our customers when they're not searching? How are we lending them a helping hand when they're not out there looking for stuff? So that's really what we're going to want to know, just consistently. So jump over here, go to backlinks, and we'll just see, all right, what are we ranking for? And for the competition, we just want to say, okay, so where are they being featured? How do we get featured? Obviously, a reference in Esquire is great. You want that. AV Club, you want that. We want to figure out where the links are coming from for the competition, and then we want to duplicate that same strategy so we're seeing that same growth. And the final thing is site structure, right? So Deep Crawl is an amazing tool for doing this. If you don't know very much about SEO, this is probably the way to go. Moz is also great, especially if you own the site. But in both those instances, you kind of have to set up the project. But you can just get a massive amount of information from Deep Crawl. And you don't have to just sort of be an SEO expert. You can sort of just go and get that in detail and execute. I personally, just because of how much data I have to crunch, right? I use Screaming Frog because at the end of the day, it's cheap and I can just run millions of URLs a year. It's affordable for kind of any site owner. But basically, what I would then do, if you're trying to take apart the competition, one of the things that people don't think about is, what the heck? Where is business coming from for people, right? So when I type in duck boots, it actually becomes pretty clear that LL Bean has garbage, terrible SEO structure, right? They're using a bunch of search pages as their general process pages, but we can still figure out, right? Like, I didn't know that duck boots were heavily associated with hunting, right? But like, all right, duck boots, duck hunting, I'm not the brightest, but obviously like waterfowl hunting, duck hunting gear, you know, that gives us some information. And generally, you'll find that the good competitors have great site structure. LL Bean is probably just so old and has so many links running up to it that it's performing on organic despite this weakness. But obviously, the point here is that we're dissecting the site structure and we want to duplicate it, right? We want to be as good as the best. And then it just opens up another area, right, where we go back to some of our ranking tools and we go duck hunting gear, right? Because we want to know what is out there in terms of content. So we want to know what do those rankings look like. So that just brings us back to the keyword data, generally speaking. So that's sort of that. The other thing to look at is retail distribution, right? So in this case, Google is our friend. Generally, most business owners that are wondering about the competition, not our friend, right? But what you want to do here is type in the brand name minus the site of it to see who's referencing it, and then any negative keywords that might come up. So say for Columbia, the sportswear brand, you want to do minus university because obviously it's going to be irrelevant to us. The other thing is to check on eBay and Amazon, which we kind of already did, right? So that'll just let us know who's out there. Let's go with Sorel though. So we'll go site Amazon.com. We'll do Sorel. Do site eBay.com and do Sorel. And then we'll do Sorel minus Sorel.com. And I think that's some kind of animal, right? So let's also do minus Zappos.com. Do minus Nordstrom's. Just want to see what's out there, right? So obviously this is a massive brand. So hopefully it'd be a little easier if you were in something with a little more with a little less traffic. So stuff like Shopbop, it's probably still a store, but you want to scroll down here and just see kind of what they're up to, get a sense of what their distribution looks like generally. They sell in so many stores. If you're them, you're going to be pretty far down there. And that's the kind of the info we want, right? Is what is going on in eBay and Amazon where a lot of commerce is happening. On the flip side, for a lead gen tool, so HubSpot's like a huge inbound marketing tool in terms of sort of their size in the market. They're really leading inbound marketing. So I'm curious what their external PR looks like. So even for a service brand, you can still sort of use the same tactic to figure out what is going on in the rest of the market. So HubSpot, when you eliminate their domain, you're going to get a lot of reviews. You're going to get Medium stuff. And it's really just a question of like, oh, okay, they do slide shares. Maybe they're getting customers through there. They're on Drift. Maybe they're getting customers through there. It's really just a matter of figuring out what's going on. In this case, right, they've been featured in Fortune, which kind of just sounds like people writing about the business rather than a specific PR activity. But this is the kind of information that you want to use Google to get. On the eBay side, you want to figure out if they're selling direct, right? So does Sorel run their own sales channel through eBay? And for Amazon, we also want to know the same thing, right? Are they selling their stuff directly on there? Are their own distributors selling it? So they have their own store. Oh, okay. So this tells us, man, we really got to knuckle up if we're trying to battle them on Amazon, especially for a similar product. It's all about just eliminating areas we don't think we can outcompete them, and also finding areas we can outcompete them and get in there and make better content, right? So if someone's going to be searching for duck hunting gear, I want to make sure they find my brand. That's just how it goes, right? So the best goose hunting clothes, the best duck hunting clothes. These are all entry points in the market where we can get people to our site before they go to other sites. So that's just a huge part of sort of playing the game, finding weaknesses in the competition. So are we gonna be able to compete with Drake, or if we are Drake, how are we gonna compete with LL Bean? These are sort of opportunities where you can go out and make content that gives you an opening in a challenging market, and that's the name of the game. So, we check retail distribution because if we're doing a lot of marketing activities, but people are just on Amazon, that either tells us that we need to be on Amazon or we need to be more serious about finding other areas. And if they're selling on Amazon, then they're really just relying on Amazon to rank and sell their product. So they're paying a 20% tax or a 40% tax for Amazon's rankings or eBay's rankings. So it's something that you need to be aware of as a business owner when it just comes to success at the end of the day. The next area is paid traffic, right? So a lot of businesses grew exponentially based on AdWords traffic 5-10 years ago, and they're still doing a lot of paid traffic. So SpyFu is probably the best tool for this. No tool is going to be perfect. No tool is going to get anywhere near. No, I've never seen one of these tools that's actually projected the right amount of revenue for an AdWords campaign or a paid campaign. But we're going to want to get into SpyFu. We're going to want to get into AdWords Keywords Planner and spy on the competition there. SEMrush has great information on display advertising. iEspionage is also a great alternative if you don't have enough cash flow for SpyFu and you need some of the more SEO features. What Runs Where can also show you a lot of great information on ad copy, as can Moat. Both of these are kind of gated pretty strongly, so not necessarily good calls when it comes to this video. We can maybe get in there at a later date, but the thing to keep in mind is if you're trying to figure out what the competition's doing well, you want to know what keywords they're running against. You want to see the ad copy, right? Especially for a brand like LL Bean, they're not going to run ads that lose them money consistently every month, right? That would just be foolish. We want to know what the broad match looks like. This SpyFu is going to let us figure that information out. iEspionage is also going to let us figure that information out, because at the end of the day, if they're making a lot of money from AdWords, it may not be good. If they have the budget to battle us at every turn to even be in that area, but if they're not, then man, we really want to get after it. So that's sort of just the reality we're facing. When you look at Google AdWords Planner, they're definitely going a lot harder on women's duck shoes. So I would actually venture to guess that, given the fact that LL Bean at this point is pretty casual, they probably just sell more duck shoes to women in a retail space, right? So if I'm battling for market share in duck boots and I'm looking at the women's market, I'm probably going to be thinking in a more retail mindset. They're clearly not pursuing hunting at this point, which is the other market that we located, right? So if you look at a site like Drake, they're going after duck boots for people that are actually hunting geese and ducks. Obviously, women are going to wear those too, right? But the point is, if we figure out that the competition's going one way, it opens up the door for us to go the other way. If we're going after the retail space, then we're going to go and do the content similar to Shopbop, right? Which is the how to match your clothes with, or was it what to wear with duck boots, right? So if we're going after the retail space, we're going to want to look at content more like this, right? Because obviously there's thousands of pins for like duck boot outfits. If we're going for the hunting space, we're going to want to go after like best geese hunting gear, best quail hunting gear, because we just can't afford to target everything like Amazon may be able to. But it's like if it's a retail market and we're not looking at specialists who are trying to buy specifically waterproof gear for themselves, their daughters, their sons, whoever it is, right, to take hunting, but they're actually trying to dress with duck boots, then we need to be on Pinterest, right? So that's the kind of information that you can get from an AdWords campaign. And obviously we're going to want to find areas that are underexploited and also use the SpyFu information to really dig into solid areas that we can run ads against. Because at the end of the day, that's really the question we're making, and you can get that information. So my paid competitors are not necessarily going to be my organic competitors. That is consistent. I've seen that thousands of times, and it bears repeating that the people that you battle with in AdWords and shopping and Bing are not necessarily going to be the same people that you're actually competing for organic search ranking for. Now, some people just skip the ads, right? So if you're in a younger market, I would generally just say, you need to think about how you're going to address your organic traffic, and content ultimately is going to be the answer to that. But all of that said, if the competition isn't really running any paid ads, then the next step is to run paid ads, because why am I going to spend, a couple grand for X months on content and SEO when I can just run $1,000 or whatever it may be on AdWords and just completely go over the competition's head, right? So if I'm battling Drake's, Drake Waterfowl, right, and they're not running ads, then man, we're gonna run ads because we're not even gonna try to outcompete them on content. It's not worth it. Let's just go straight to the customer. Let's get on Facebook, run social ads. They're not running paid, so it's a massive weakness. So if you're Mac SPW or Bandit or any of these other companies that I've never heard of, that's the next move to make. So next thing is social ads, social media marketing. So again, this is going to be kind of an area where you want to take a serious look at yourself. You should go out and follow your competition on all their main social platforms and figure out whether they are or they aren't serious. Obviously, if your market's 50 plus and just doesn't care about social, then you're not going to want to be on there. But, in most instances, I feel like that's an excuse, and people are actually, if they're a good enough company, they're going to be out there and they're going to have engagement. Rockler's a great example of this, right? So they're really hitting a key demo. That's 38 plus men that are into woodworking. Like at the end of the day, that's what they're all about blasting their ads to. That's what they're trying to make their money off of. But you'll still see really solid social engagement because they've built out a community of woodworking enthusiasts. So we want to investigate their social. We want to check out, Barry, figure out what makes him tick. We want to check out Larry Hill, figure out what makes him tick. These guys are at the CNC machine. These guys are doing stuff. We have to figure out what they're into if we want to sell to them, and basically just follow the breadcrumb trail back to where they're at so that their cash will ultimately end up in our pockets. So even if you're targeting an older demo, you still need to be serious about social. Drake Waterfowl, they got massive traffic in terms of followers on Twitter. I don't know if it's legit, but generally from the likes and the spread of it, I think they do pretty well. So you have to dissect how they're connecting, right? You have to ask yourself, obviously it's about families and it's about hunting with your kids and continuing the great American tradition. That's what they're into. They're doing giveaways. So they're obviously serious about social, right? So either you need to then be, or you need to decide to not be. And that's just sort of how you'd react. We just need to get in there on each of their levels. Puppies and hunting with your sons, right? This is how they're marketing. So we have to ask ourselves whether or not we want to do that. We got to figure out what kind of videos they're making on YouTube. In this case, they're linking out to a dead YouTube page. That's pretty bad, but whatever. They're active on Pinterest. Again, there's just all sorts of things they could be doing here. Maybe this is their weakness area, right? Maybe matching well with hoodies, right? Looking good in your camo, that's like a huge area, and they're not even touching it. That's just what you got to figure out, where they're doing well and where they're doing poorly. They're not really active on Google Plus. I don't blame them, but you want to get in there and dissect their social, follow them, and then figure out if they're running remarketing ads to your site through Facebook, right? So you go to their site and then you're just seeing them pop up when you're trying to look at your grandkids or whatever it may be, or they're following you around the web when you're checking out other places. You just sort of need to figure out, are they serious about social? Are they running ads? And then should I be serious about it, right? The answer doesn't have to be yes, but if it's a weakness in their armor, you can go out and pursue that. You can go out and create a community like they have, or you can go out and create a community like Rockler has, where you're working directly with your target market. So these opportunities are always there and they're always worth exploiting. The last sort of kind of big area, right, is PR. A lot of companies don't really do PR until they're massive. They don't think about it because generally PR is like, oh man, we made a mistake. But there are massive opportunities out there. Ahrefs is probably the easiest way to figure this out. There's a lot of products out there, but I think for your average small business, you're not trying to spend $500-$600 on a pretty subpar, in my opinion, PR tool. So I generally tend to stay away from them. The big questions to ask yourself here on the public relationship side is, are they writing for other businesses? So are they getting in front of customers and borrowing those sort of blogs or magazines market? Are they getting the attention of those customers, or are they sort of generating backlinks through writing for other businesses, right? That's what we're wondering about. The other thing is, are they paying to play, right? Sometimes you'll find on the SEO side of things that people are doing PR, but they're actually just kind of paying for sponsored posts and or just paying for straight up backlinks, right? So that's something common to be on the lookout for. And the most important question, right, is are they forming real relationships? So are they actually contributing pretty consistently to a lot of these places? So the best way to get all that information, honestly, is Ahrefs. There's a bunch of tools out there, but if we're trying to figure out what a company like this is sort of up to, what are they cooking, because we want to get the secret sauce, we just basically got to get in here and check out what their backlink profile looks like. They have a massive amount of backlinks, so I'm going to do something real quick here. I'm actually going to check if they have an affiliate program. I'm going to bet they do. They may not. But yeah, affiliates and partners. So keep in mind that a lot of large businesses, this is kind of their dirty little secret of how they get backlinks. Amazon has a massive affiliate program. That's how they get a lot of their backlinks. Even someone that you might not think of, right? Like Target, boom, affiliate program, right? So a lot of these sites, you know what? I'll do even one better. Yep, REI, right? So even a company like REI that's doing pretty awesome content marketing, loving on their customer base, everyone has a high opinion of them. They're still out there just doing old school affiliate programs and, basically buying links. So that's something to be aware of because that could also be happening with the competition. So back to Drake, they're doing content videos on these things, but we really want to know, what are they doing for other people? Are they getting out there and writing content? So basically what you do is just jump in here and kind of start sussing out if they're serious about making content. 99% of the time, you won't really see much, right? It'll only be kind of big companies that are able to have a lot of backlinks, and it'll be pretty quick to figure out what they are or aren't doing. And that's really the question that we want to know about. So for Drake's, obviously they got a guy in the bushes here with a freaking geese whistle. So like they have a pretty serious customer base. And again, if you saw their social profile, they had a lot of stuff on sort of families and hunting with your sons. And man, that one daughter, unfortunately, right? So like they're basically nailing their target demo in the way that they do things. And being PC damned, they're really just after it. So that's something to observe, right? And you want to then simulate that in your own social or organic or content work. And that's really what we're looking for, right? So if you look at their market, they're obviously just sort of in front of enthusiasts. They're not having to do a lot of PR. Whatever it is they make, people love it. And people are willing to buy it from them. So you need to keep in mind, I need to either start reaching out and becoming more a part of the community as these guys are, or I need to sort of just go on the back end side of things, go after SEO metrics, get guest posts in so you get the backlinks and rank better, and then sort of build your brand that way. Because when it comes down to PR, it's probably the most expensive and hardest area to be in. Very few companies just succeed purely off PR. Like Tesla's a great example of this. They don't really have to do marketing, right? They just make like badass stuff. People love it. People share it. They're constantly in the news. They don't have to worry about sort of mundane stuff like backlinks. And on the flip side, how much traffic is there really out there for buy electric car, right? Does organic traffic even matter to them? That's another question you need to ask yourself. If my addressable market doesn't even know they need the product, I need to either create content to make them know they need it, i.e., this is the most waterproof duck boot that's ever been created, or I need to go out there and get in front of their faces with great PR, i.e., never get a cold again because my duck boots will keep your feet warm, right? Whatever it may be. That's the kind of tack that you need to take. The other thing to be on the lookout for is whether or not they're doing influencer marketing. Follower Wonk's a great tool for this. It's really kind of fallen off the radar. But one thing to really be aware of is, are people sort of hosting or paying for inclusion in areas? Or you'll see a lot of businesses will have a really big, they'll have like one influencer that's their main guy, right? That's like trying to flip it, or like there's one woman that's like actively the brand's quote unquote hero. So we kind of jump in here and figure out, are they doing influencer marketing as part of their PR strategy? Are they reaching out to influencers and sort of creating their own experts, right? So Drake Waterfowl, they are innovators in waterfowl hunting, right? That's their thing. But they got this guy who is the quote unquote field expert, right? Um, he sells music and he hunts hard. Um, and it seems like he's a Drake Waterfowl representative, right? So they're hosting this guy to go out and hunt, use the product, and he's a legitimate influencer, right? So in this case, they've created their own influencer, right? This guy is going to post pictures of deers that he's about to murk and his dog, and that's what he does. And he probably gets free products for it, or he's working directly for the company. But what you really want to suss out is, are they paying influencers to get involved with the brand, or are they creating these influencers themselves, right? So this person, right, has created the #1 hunting dog on Instagram, and they're sponsored by Chasepedia. They're on Team Drake Waterfowl, right? So it's a little gray zone here where it's like, love hunting, I love hanging out with my dog, probably gonna buy some duck boots, and that's really what they're going after. So you want to suss out, what's happening on the influencer side of things. Paying for influencers, and there's a few market exchanges out there, is probably one of the best ways you can go. But if you look at Drake Waterfowl, they probably don't care massively about organic traffic on a certain level. I'm sure it's out there for them. Let's run them through this real quick. Into SEMrush, just because I love them, and probably what I love most is that they got that great historical data. But so here's the thing: they only have 10,000 keywords ranking. They probably make tons of money from organic traffic. It's probably a huge area for them. But they don't have the 440,000 keywords that LL Bean had, right? What they're doing is they're superseding the market and going straight to the consumer, right? So you are following them because you're generally interested in puppies and hunting and ducks and killing stuff with your sons, right? That's what you're into, and you're following them, and like they make you happy, right? So if that's what you have to do, then you sort of just need to be aware that that's the strategy you have to pursue or defeat or challenge, right? So if you're a smaller retailer in the middle of Virginia, you have to ask yourself, what am I going to do to get at my target market? Can I make all these investments that they're making? Should I just go hard on AdWords? Should I just do all the content that they're not doing? And that's really the sort of ROI equation that you have to ask yourself and solve. So getting down to the very bottom, what if you see nothing? So if you can't find anything, they may actually just be sort of completely traditional. This happens, but obviously in the digital sphere, the only way you're going to get someone that's completely brick and mortar is an organic ranking, so it'll be a local competitor. And this is where a lot of people get tripped up, right? They'll say, it'd be like hunting gear in Biloxi, Mississippi, and be like, oh, I hate this guy. I've been battling him for 30 years. Well, it's actually the case that Amazon and all these bigger sites are actually your competitor, right? Like Orvis might be taking all your market. It's not the guy down the street that owns the local market. But the things to look for here, if you're searching for traditional marketing, is, do they have branded search traffic? Are they hiring salespeople? And is it just a local business? So for branded search traffic, as we saw in the very beginning with SimilarWeb, you'll get a good slice of that if you're seeing it, right? You'll see these organic keywords that are generating traffic for them. That'll just let you know that these guys are just a local company, right? They're not out there going very hard or very serious in the digital sphere. They're out there sort of just alone in a certain sense, right? So if you see Drake Hoodie, you know that these guys have a serious following. On the flip side, you need to really ask yourself, how are they making money? So on the SaaS side of things, right, if it's a service business, what you want to do is you want to go to like Indeed.com or something like that, and you want to search for that company and just see what's going on. See if they're, you want to check here, right? So like Keen's hiring, Columbia Sportswear is hiring. You want to see if these guys are just hiring a ton of marketing specialists and salespeople, because that'll let you know that, they don't care about Amazon, they don't care about Google, they don't care about ads, they don't care about PR. They're just hiring salespeople and they're blowing up the phones. The other thing I like to look at too is disgruntled employees on Glassdoor. Always entertaining. Probably the only fun part about spying on successful competitors. Just jump into Google, go over here, Glassdoor plus the name of the brand that you're battling against. So looks like, here we go, Waterfowl Jobs, interesting. Drake International, hopefully, is the name of the business. Um, yeah, so these guys probably aren't getting reviews, but you know, you still in most cases want to go and see if you can find any traction out there, um, or like do a more broad search like waterfowl, waterfowl and wetland foreman, a little bit out of the way, but they had to hire these waterfowl experts on Twitter somehow, right? So just at least scroll into the brand name. Another good thing to look for is if they don't have any sort of Google search box stuff going on over here. They probably aren't very serious about SEO. As we saw, they're probably going the most hard just on PR and sort of other traditional marketing areas where they've been successful. But just searching the brand will give you a good sense of what they got going on, right? They're selling on eBay, selling on Cabela's, which is probably some e-com store that I've never heard of. But you just kind of want to wind your way down and really see what's going on. When you see things like TexasWaterfowl.com, it's like one of their distributors, that should let you know that, they are out there in the market and you either need to contact them and get on that site or you're kind of just facing an unwinnable situation. That's what you really need to figure out. So, yeah, and then basically it's just local business, right? So if you just Google like Biloxi hunting gear, is that just why you see those guys? So end of the day, the guerrilla tactics for stealing their customers, right? We want to steal them all. What you really need to look at too, once you've looked at all the above, is their site just better than yours? Is the design better? Is it more appealing? Would you prefer to buy from them? There are a bunch of tools for doing that, right? You should check the speed of their site versus yours on webpagetest.org. You want to ask yourself, are they using lead magnets? Was the checkout process better than mine? So buy something from your competition, or at least try to, right, and see what that feels like. Something I like to use too is BuiltWith, which is a Chrome extension, so I can really get in there and just see what they're operating off of super quickly. Are they using a better CMS than me, right? So if my site's super slow, should I just switch to BigCommerce or whatever it is that they're using? Those are the questions I like to ask. Also, to get more into it, we want to go to Glassdoor, we want to search them out. We want to see, are they using customer reviews, right? Are they running Yotpo or a system that's just bugging the web constantly? We want to get on Craigslist and Indeed and see if they're doing jobs. Spy on Web is great, right? We can see, do they own multiple domains? Are they cheating the system somehow? These are all good, solid questions to ask about a competing business. So you drop something in like the competitor domain, paste it in there, and you see what the IP address is. If you see a bunch of so Drake Young Guns, right? They have all these other. They're basically acting like a media company and creating other. They probably had a past site, but you want to find, like, are they running their own little media empire on the side where they have domains hosted where they're just creating content and pretending to be, more removed than they actually are from the market? That's a pretty good question to ask yourself. The last little thing too is you can always get pretty good info just using Google. So one of the little sneaky things and ways you can spy on the competition is just to type in the domain and then do a search for like PDF, right? Sometimes, very rarely, if you're really wondering what's going on, you can find like PDFs of slides and press releases, and sort of like sometimes you'll just find a PowerPoint or something that they like left on the server, and you're just looking at their marketing plan for the next 6 months. So that can be pretty sweet to know about. Definitely something to look into. So yeah, at the end of the day, you know, you want to get in there, shut them down. Basically, we just go in there and we determine what their most lucrative strategy is through the process that I've outlined for you here. And once we figure out what's the most lucrative for them, we just need to decide what we then want to pursue, right? We don't have to be everywhere, but if they're not somewhere, that's an opportunity. Or if we think we can perform better than them organically or anywhere else, then that's also an opportunity. So Shaheen from ID Marketing Tools, thank you so much for diving in there with me. I hope I gave you a good sense of how to both break down a company in 5 minutes and then how to get in there for hours and really just investigate what's going on with the business and how to defeat them, outrank them, steal their content, and ultimately steal their customers. Good luck.